All right, welcome back. We're doing one more webcast, a recap of the season. Happy New Year to you, Dave.
Happy New Year, Josh.
We'll send this out, give everyone one last taste before the long off season. Obviously, we have playoff games, playoff pools, all that stuff. But for our league, uh, we don't want to bury the headline. Berto, Sasha Stash, took home the title this year. We want to officially congratulate them on the webcast. Their second title in 4 years. And so far through 4 years, they have two titles, Dave, and you have the other two.
Yeah, seems like I have the odd years. Berto has the even years.
Exactly, which I guess bodes well for you next year. Um,
I hope.
well, yeah, we thought this was your year, but you ended up with the third place title. Um, and took home a good amount of money this year. I was, of course, the runner-up, I think, for the second time. Um, so far, I believe in the 4 years, nobody except for Berto, myself, and you have made the finals.
Yeah, that's correct. I look back through the history, and that is true.
In the 4 years, it was you over me in year one. It was Berto over you in year two. You over Berto in year three, and Berto over me in year four. So
Yeah.
I mean, almost every combination except me winning has happened. But every combination that involves you guys winning has happened. Um, but we also, looking back to the history, we noticed that Stiff Arm has made the playoffs 3 years. I think um, they haven't advanced any of the 3 years, but they did win one third place title, which does bring home some money for them.
Yep.
And in year one, Mr. Miner made the playoffs as well as Rick. And of course, this year we expanded the playoffs. Rick earned his second playoff berth, um, as well as the Jugs. Schwab made his first playoffs this year. So kind of cool just to look back at what everyone's done as everyone builds their kind of franchise history. Obviously, you and Berto have had the most success. Uh, but let's dive into this year specifically because Berto was the winner. I thought it was a really interesting year. Most people considered Dave for your team to be the favorite at the beginning of the year. I wish I had saved our picks. I mean, I know they're somewhere, but I didn't pull them up. I'm pretty sure we both picked you to win over Berto. Um,
Yep, that's
but
correct.
that said, though, it flipped pretty quickly. I mean, what week do you think it was that Berto became the favorite?
I think Berto was always good, and we always thought he was good, and I think we said he was going to be the second place team or fighting for the championship. I think it was more when did my team start to suck? Because in the middle of the season there, I was not very good, to say the
You
least.
from the beginning, which is funny. I mean, I think you got good when you acquired Brady and Gronk, and Calvin Johnson got healthy. But I mean, I guess I can pull up your season. I mean, I don't remember exactly how it went, but in week one you had that close win against Jassel, if you remember.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was week two. Uh, you beat the Llamas in week one. You squeezed by. Uh, you lost in week two to the Jugs, and then you squeaked by Jassel in week three. So I think after week three, it was kind of like, you're not putting up the points we thought you would. You never recovered. You made the Brady trade, and I think everyone expected you to make a run. And maybe it was just the seeding that hurt you because you ended up having to face Berto in the semifinals, and then your old luck returned. And you did the old thing where your team lays an egg. I still can't figure out with Brady, Gronk, Jamal Charles, Calvin Johnson, Sean McCoy, Marshawn Lynch. How is it that you didn't, put up 120 points a week? I mean, Berto had a great team, but I still will never understand as the years go by what exactly happened to your team this year.
Yeah, I mean, everyone really underperformed. I mean, at the beginning of the season, the reason why I think you picked my team and I picked mine. I think I had 5 of the top 7 ranked players in most people's lists. But in the end of the season, I think only Forte finished in the top 10 in points. I mean, Jamal Charles was decent, not great. McCoy was mediocre at best. Megatron was hurt a lot. Keenan Allen didn't do much. Lynch was all right, and then I traded him, obviously. I mean, everyone really just underperformed a lot towards what their expectations and projections were. I mean, each week I was projected to win by a lot.
I don't think you were projected for less than 130 points in any week. I mean, it really is incredible. I mean, every week the site loved you. And it really was because the site obviously is hardwired with the projections. So the site every week had LaShawn McCoy getting 20. You know, they never amend that. So basically your projection was, you know, the way it was from you know, from day one. But you know, I don't understand exactly what happened. I do wonder going into next year, LaShawn McCoy specifically, right? Where is he ranked for running backs next year?
He's 8, 9, 10 ish.
I mean, I have a feeling he's going to be a steal next year, but we'll see. I mean, I still don't understand how in that offense he isn't an absolute stud. But
and he had in the end a good statistical year running. Like he ended up getting a good amount of yards. I think he was 4th or 5th in the league in rushing yards, but he didn't get many touchdowns. I mean, in the game I played against Berto, Polk got 2 touchdowns, and what's his name, the little guy, Sproles got the other touchdown. Like if McCoy gets 3 touchdowns there, at least I think I put up a better fight than what I ended up doing. I mean,
I look at on the season, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He was 12th on the season in points.
But he was the number 1 pick in every redraft league.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously 12th is an underperformance, but that said, there's just not that many running backs that are even viable. So he's definitely got to be one of the top 6 running backs off the board because some of the guys in front of him, you know, Justin Forsett, Lamar Miller, you're not taking ahead of McCoy. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. Who's ranked higher next year, LaShawn McCoy or C.J. Anderson?
If C.J. Anderson has the top spot, it might be. It's probably C.J. Anderson.
And this is where fantasy football, where every other team in this league should kind of take note because Berto did not need extra talent, but he's the one that ended up with Anderson. Let me tell you, Anderson was a free agent. Anybody could have had him, and he might be one of the top 5 picks next year if he is clearly the starter.
I agree. I mean, that's why playing the waiver wire is critical. You got to get a little lucky. I think you're a testament that you didn't think C.J. Anderson was going to get that job. You owned every other Bronco back. So
thanks for reminding me. Thank you.
Berto took a chance, and it really worked out for him. I mean, he got like a guy. He was like a top scorer the last 4 or 5 weeks, or the last 6, 7 weeks of the season.
Yeah, just ridiculous, honestly. Anyway, we digress. I think, you know, at the end of the day, you know, your worst case scenario was probably a 3rd place finish. You finished 3rd. I mean, even a bad season for you. This is your worst finish in the 4 years. You did take care of Rick in the 3rd place game. Let's talk about Rick for a second before we get to the finals matchup. So the last time we spoke to everyone, we were previewing the semifinals. It was you versus Berto, myself versus. In the semifinals, there was a very interesting finish that cost Rick $100. It was the touchdown pass from Jay Cutler to Alshon Jeffrey in the final seconds of the game, which neither Rick or I were watching, I have to be honest with you. I found out via text from Berto, and I think Rick found out the next morning that I had actually won. I thought I had lost. Uh, the Bears punted with 2:34 left, and the game was over in my mind. I don't have any idea how Jeffrey scored. So let's not forget, Rick was that close to being the second place finisher this year, assuming he would have lost to Berto, obviously, in the finals. But he was right there, and I got very, very lucky to beat him in that game.
Yeah, again, luck comes involved with the matchups. If I had played either one of you, I would have won and advanced, and maybe had a different outcome in the final. So it is what it is. That's why you need the bye. You need to get the better matchups. What was that?
I think okay, but I think I beat you with that touchdown with Jeffrey. I'm checking right now. Obviously, it means a lot for my. Yeah,
Actually, I think you did with that touchdown. You're right.
94, 94.12 to 92.28. I really wish I was playing you because that would have been something I could have rubbed in for a long time. I mean, how angry would you have been if I had? Because I outscored you 94-92 that week. I mean, if that truly.
I wouldn't have been. I wouldn't have been. I mean, I would have been upset. You're always upset to lose, but I wouldn't have been that upset because you can't expect to win with 92 points. It's just not enough. You got to score points to win.
Well, okay, so it's a good point because the Stash had 126, beating you pretty easily in that matchup. In the finals, the Stash had 120. You beat Rick 101-92, and I had 83. So if you look at the four playoff teams, Berto hit 120 in both weeks, and the next highest score was 101. Every other score was 83, 92, 94. I mean, what was it about this league that it seemed like everyone just kind of fell over, and Berto was just the only team, with any pulse at the end?
I can't explain that. I mean, but that's why Berto won because he was consistent. He didn't put up low point totals. I can't go back to every week, but I mean, he was pretty consistently putting up at least triple digits, if not into the 120s, 130s.
All right, so let's definitely talk about Rick real quick. Rick, we definitely have to give him some credit because regardless of his finish, he had a historic season. He now is the record holder for consecutive wins, breaking your record of 7. He has 9 consecutive wins, and he just so happened to start the year with 9 straight wins. So that 9-0 mark may stand for a long time, if not ever, in this league. And I think, a lot of people thought Rick was doing it with smoke and mirrors, but I think it's important for us to recognize just how many injuries he had. The team that he was putting out at the end of the year did not have Andre Ellington, did not have Noshawn Moreno, and he just didn't, unfortunately, have an opportunity to showcase his real team. I just want to make sure that as time goes on, people remember that, Rick didn't just expose his true colors. I mean, Rick had legitimate injuries that caused his team to change, where he was no longer the 9-0 team.
Yeah, I mean, we talked all year about his running backs, but a lot of that was due to injury, like you said. Ellington, Marino, Spiller. I mean, they all were hurt for a majority of the season, or a good part of the season, at least.
And I should point out, by the way, one thing that came up in our last podcast, when we previewed the semifinal matchup, there was a debate over Big Ben versus Drew Brees. And, Rick, I mean, I don't know, he should never go to Vegas because not only did he lose on the last-second Alshon Jeffrey touchdown, but I think if he had just started Drew Brees, it wouldn't have even mattered. He would have won $100 for second place. It was a tough debate. Rick went with Roethlisberger, but it goes to show, I guess, sometimes having a good backup can be a curse Because if he had had a crappy backup, he would have just rolled with Breeze and not even thought about it.
Yeah, I definitely I or texted with Rick about that, and he didn't change his mind. Like he said, he went with his decision and kind of his gut on that one, and it just didn't work out. So sometimes you overthink it. Maybe you just start Breeze and just hope that he's gonna. He did have a tough matchup that week, but Breeze is Breeze. So
Absolutely. I mean, look, Big Ben, in hindsight, if Roethlisberger had put up 30, everyone would be calling him a genius. I don't think it was a bad call. I think I said during the podcast, you could go either way. Breeze was on the road, and Breeze didn't look great the last 2 weeks. I mean, the Saints really tanked. So it's not like the Saints were some juggernaut. So I think Rick was on solid ground in his decision. It just didn't work out.
yeah, I agree. I don't think it was out of left field. I think there was some good thought behind it. It just didn't work out.
All right, so Rick ends up losing to me on the last second touchdown. You end up losing to Berto. It's not close. I mean, I don't know if you remember. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had 8 points, Tom Brady 20, lost by 32. I mean, again, there's some kind of different dimension of math this year because I just don't understand. If somebody had told you that you outscored Berto 20-8 in the quarterback matchup, you would have bet your life that you had won that fantasy matchup, but you lose by 32. What do you remember from that weekend facing Berto? Was it ever close, or did it just go bad from the start?
It was close in the 1 o'clock games, and then Berto just his late game guys just exploded. I think C.J. Anderson had a huge game, and playing at 4 o'clock, his 4 o'clock players just went off from my memory. I actually think I was ahead by like 2 points going into those 4 o'clock games, and then he just went nuts.
Well, definitely Jamal Charles against Oakland. I had pegged him. I gave you the kiss of death with a 30-point projection. He ended up with 5. I think he might have gotten hurt.
And Niall Davis vultured a touchdown from him. Like I had touchdown vultures all over the place. All my backups scored.
You should rename your team to the Vultures. You definitely got robbed a few times, but I think it was probably good that you lost the way you did because Berto did put up 126. Not that you weren't capable of it, but it wasn't like last year's final last year's final, yes, where you beat Berto in a very low-scoring game where it's kind of like both managers feel shitty. I mean, Berto earned it. 126 is a score that's very tough to beat in the playoffs. So, at the end of the day, it was going to take a lot for you to overcome what he did.
Yeah, I had 75 points from my bench. They almost outscored my starters. My God.
And that's why, by the way, we don't use the tiebreaker of bench points because it's not really fair to teams that are building for the future. That's one of the options on the site. But anyway, so we get to the final. It's Berto versus myself. We didn't do a podcast that week, but I think if you polled the league, it would have been unanimous. I don't think a single person would have picked me to beat Berto. I just did not have the horses, and it showed. I mean, I only scored 83 points in the final. Berto put up a 120. Matthew Stafford was atrocious. I never found a second running back. Ronnie Hillman getting hurt just killed me. It honestly just wasn't even a contest. Berto just got a balanced effort, put up a 120. And by the way, Berto had the highest scoring point total in the whole league in Week 16, in Week 15, in Week 14, he had a 154. And I believe in Week 13, He had a 142. He won the last 4 weeks. I mean, in terms of dominant performances, I don't know that I've been in a fantasy league where I've seen a more dominant performance. Winning 4 weeks in a row outright, 4 weeks in a row is really hard to do. So, a well-deserved title, and I'm glad that we pay out for those weeks because Berno deserves all those $12 weeks. I mean, do you know historically if that's ever happened? 4 straight weeks just winning the league?
I don't know. Probably back in my streak, there was a week like that, but not at the end of the season going into in the playoffs. I mean,
yeah. And I went back one more week. He won a fifth straight week. He had 158 points in week 12. I encourage anyone to go to the website and look at the scores because it's just incredible. He actually won 5 straight weeks. Now, I'm looking at for the season. I think he only won 6.
You don't get the $12 for week 15 and 16 because that's part of the playoffs. But 3 straight regular season weeks to end the season, and then high score in the playoffs too.
I'm a little confused. I mean, I might be miscounting because the website keeps track of weeks, including the playoffs, and they only gave him credit for 4. So I may be missing.
It's tough to see on the scoreboards, and
he definitely won week 16, and he won week 15. I'm actually a little bit confused why he doesn't have more weeks. In my view, he won 5 straight weeks to end the season. Are you on the standings page?
I won week 13.
Sorry, you did.
Anyway, either way, I beat him by 2 points with 144 to 1.
You edged him out in week 13.
Definitely still.
So he only won 3 in a row. So
Did I lose you?
Sorry, I lost you for a second there. Lost you for a second there. You back?
Yeah, I lost you. I don't know what happened there.
Right. Well, saying the same point I was, but in the final 5 weeks, he won 4, and the 1 week he lost was by 2. Definitely a dominant performance.
Absolutely. Berto was definitely a deserving champion.
But I do want to point out, Dave, we do give $12 for having the most points in week 15 and 16. Because that's why we set up the consolation bracket on the website.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You're right.
To give every team. So when I look at the website, Berto has 4 wins. That means he didn't win any of the first 11 weeks of the season.
I don't know. I haven't gone back and gone.
No, I'm just saying the site keeps track of number of weeks won. He only has 4, and I just counted them. It's weeks 12, 14. Those are his only wins. So he really peaked at the right time.
Absolutely, and a lot of that was C.J. Anderson.
Has to win some kind of award. And I know Dave, let's run through those, give out the 2014 awards. Now the season is done.
All right. And Josh, we kind of went over these together, but if you have feedback or comments on any of these, please jump in. Fantasy MVP, I gave to Andrew Luck. The reason for that is just, I mean, he was dominant. I don't think Moran even has a chance to sniff at the playoffs without Luck. He basically took that team on his back and fantasy-wise carried Moran as far as Moran could almost go with the rest of his team. Uh, we talked about Luck, I think, every week of the season almost, and on how great he was and dominant. So I gave it to the MVP to Luck. Any issues with that, or?
I want to jump in. Right, I agree, 100% with that. I do want to use this opportunity to went out on a limb and said, I would take Andrew Luck number one in a single season. A couple things changed, maybe a healthy Le'Veon Bell, but at the end of the day, Andrew Luck was the highest point scorer this year. Now the year is over, Andrew Luck in a single season league next year.
What was the question? You kind of broke up there.
Where do you take Andrew Luck in a single season league next year?
I mean, I talked about my Q. I wait on QBs, but for me, it's Luck or Rodgers. I still lean Rodgers. I just he doesn't throw interceptions, and he still throws a ton of touchdowns and yards. So I mean, I still put Rodgers number one for quarterback and Luck right behind him at number two. And I don't take.
If you have the fifth pick, are you considering a quarterback?
I would consider a quarterback at that spot, yes. In a redraft league. In a dynasty league, you might be taking these guys number 1 and 2 overall.
Absolutely.
But a redraft league, yes. Around 5, 6, if all those stud running backs are gone and top receivers are gone, which we need to probably discuss who those guys are because it seems like things have changed. I definitely don't think it's Megatron moving forward. But yeah, 5, 6, I think you got to start considering those guys in a redraft league.
Okay. Carry on. Just wanted to.
And the next one is funny because after what I just said, you would assume I would say best QB was Luck, but I'm actually giving it to Rodgers. Again, it goes right back to what I said. He didn't put up the same number of points, but if I'm picking a QB, I'm taking Rodgers in fantasy over Luck. But for this year, Luck did score more points, so I gave him the MVP. Is that is that allowed for me to give the best QB to Rodgers? Or
it's allowed only because it's consistent with the way the rest of the sports awards work, where people twist themselves in pretzels trying to make a distinction between MVP and best QB. I think it's Luck for both just because he scored more points. And fantasy is a very simple game. It's about points. And unless Rodgers missed a game, which I don't believe he did, I think you have to go by total points. I think Luck is the best QB this year. I'm not saying he's the top pick next year, but I also can't fault you. Either one could be considered either the MVP or the best quarterback because the points were so close.
Yep. Best running back I give to DeMarco Murray. I mean, he was just solid pretty much every week.
No-brainer.
That was a no-brainer for me. Best wide receiver I gave to Antonio Brown. I think, again, very, very consistent every week, putting up solid. I didn't obviously look back every week, but he put up double digits every week, I'm pretty sure, and high double digits in most of those weeks. Best tight end, Gronk, and to be honest with you, it wasn't close. Jimmy Graham, as you know very well by owning him, kind of died off at the end of the season.
Oh, no, he was terrible.
For me, Gronk in a redraft league is the number 1 tight end taken next year. What do you say on that?
Yeah, no question. I mean, it's always been, if Gronk is healthy, um, he's the guy. The one guy I want to talk about for tight end is Julius Thomas, who, you know, Graham might have been disappointing, but Julius Thomas finished seventh in overall points.
He
After
missed.
the
He
start he
missed.
got off to.
He missed 4 or 5 games though, didn't he?
Did he miss that many?
Yeah, I think he missed at least 4.
That's a fair point. I guess I need to look at average points. But certainly anybody that traded Thomas after the first 8 weeks, might have gotten a nice windfall because he was on a pace, a historic pace. He really fell off.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
But if Gronk's healthy, he's definitely the best tight end.
Next award, Rookie of the Year. I gave to a guy that missed the first 4 games, but to me was just dominant the last 12 games. I gave it to Beckham. He has really he's rising up draft boards. He's got to be in a 12-team league, late first round, if not early second round pick to me.
He's not a first round pick. That's ludicrous. He had a great year, but you're going to take your first player as Odell Beckham?
At the 12 spot, possibly.
Possibly, but in terms of wide receivers, I'm definitely Antonio Brown is ahead of him. Julio Jones is ahead of him. Des Bryant is ahead of him. Calvin Johnson is still ahead of him. I think Demaryius Thomas, Jordy Nelson, maybe you start to get to a toss-up, but there's at least I think he's maybe number 7. What do you think among wide receivers?
Yeah, once you start listing off those names, that might have been a stretch, but I also don't think as many running backs are going to go in the first round going forward.
Well, again, you're regardless of performance this year, I still think you confidently draft Murray, Bell, Lynch, Forte, Foster, probably Lacey, definitely Jamal Charles, Jeremy Hill. We already mentioned C.J. Anderson, and probably LaShawn McCoy. I would draft any of those 10 guys ahead of Odell Beckham. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I'm on the hype train. I just love the guy. I think he's going to be maybe not next year's not his year. Maybe it's 2016 that's his year, but I just love his talent.
I think he's like number 20. I think he's a solid second-round pick. A first-round pick would be a stretch, but he's definitely a second-round pick, and he's a superstar. So Odell Beckham is a very deserving Rookie of the Year.
All right. Comeback player I gave to Jeremy Maclin. Coming off that injury, didn't know what you were going to get from him. I think we talked about it. It was a draft day steal for who the hell has him? Schwab? I have no idea. But he had a great year, so I gave that to him. Biggest bust I gave to Gio Bernard. Another player on the stash, which God knows if he had him at what you thought he would be, God knows what the stash would have been. But
I just want to, I'm always eating crow, so I want to serve some crow this time because I was all over the Jeremy Hill, Gio Bernard. The way it would work out, I think after 1 week of Jeremy Hill, I said Gio Bernard would not be a top 20 running back. He's undraftable.
But he's not undraftable. Let's not get crazy.
Eventually, yes. You'll draft him, but he's not one of the top 60 players taken.
I don't know about that. They still used him a lot. He's just a timeshare guy now.
He's like a Jonathan Stewart.
2/3 of the league is timeshare guys. So
all right, we'll see. And by the way, the other.
You were so high on Jeremy Hill, and you traded him away.
Yes. First of all, let's talk about that real quick. Great job by John Connell because I got Arian Foster. I made the finals. I have no regrets. I made a lot of money with Arian Foster. When I traded Jeremy Hill, Bernard was the starter. Now, Hill became a stud. When I talked about Hill versus Bernard, this was 3 weeks after the trade, after Hill had run off 160 yards against somebody. Hill was a stud. You could have seen it coming, but Dave, the way that Bernard was playing, you could have envisioned a timeshare for 2, 3 years. But for some reason, time just accelerated, and Jeremy Hill became the man. And now he's one of the top 10 backs, and it wasn't a very good trade. I would rather have Hill than Foster, but it is what it is. I think it worked out for both teams. At least I made the finals with Foster, but I'm very high on Hill. I mean, I'm not going to just stick to my guns. As of January 7th, 2015, Jeremy Hill might get drafted ahead of Arian Foster next season.
Yeah, it'll be close. You're right. But I like getting Foster too. I think he's got a year, if not two, left in him. So it's not like he's awful. All right, next one was Best Draft Day Steal. I talked about Macklin, but I'm actually giving the award to Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, the return on investment for Sanders for Rick was amazing. Pairing him with Antonio Brown really gave Rick a shot in the arm and kept him cruising along to his 9-0 start and getting him to the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Macklin is also a good candidate.
Yeah, I said I talked about Macklin, but I'm going to give the award to Sanders.
Yeah. I think either way. I think both those guys were good values, and I think we talked about it with as a free agent pickup, but when you can get talent in the draft and deep in the draft and on the waiver wire. These players serve as prime examples of that.
Yep. GM of the year I gave to Berto. I mean, winning the championship, as we said, getting C.J. Anderson and a few other guys off waivers to help him on his charge. I think you got to give it to Berto for the dominant end of the season, as we said. Surprise team I gave to In League with Satan. I mean, that 9-0 start kind of fell off for a little bit, but then won the games he had to make the playoffs. Really, really solid year for Satan. Breakout player, I didn't give the award. I have 3 candidates, and maybe we can discuss them because they all, again, were really good. I had Beckham, Evans, and Jeremy Hill. Out of that list, who is the breakout player?
Say it again.
Beckham,
Hill.
Evans, and Hill. I mean, Mike Evans there was a stretch there where he was dominant.
I just think all 3 of those guys were rookies. So if you're going to say Beckham's Rookie of the Year, I think he's also the breakout player. You know what I mean? Because you're comparing apples to apples. I think Beckham, Evans, and Hill are all great rookies. But I think Beckham wins again. I think Beckham is the breakout player as well as the Rookie of the Year.
And then best waiver wire ad. I'm actually we talked a lot about C.J. Anderson, but I'm actually giving the award to Forsett just because he was picked up in week 4 and pretty much contributed that whole time where C.J. Anderson only contributed, the last 6-7 weeks of the season. So I think Pat got a lot more bang for his buck with Forsett than the C.J. Anderson coming off the waivers.
Yeah, I think you're right. Also, just the guile to take Forsett. I think it was criticized by myself for sure. I didn't think that was a very good move, and Pat proved me wrong. So, from a degree of difficulty standpoint, I thought going with Forsett in the very first waiver draft definitely deserves that award.
So, Josh, the next thing I think we should do, and I haven't really put much, I put a little thought into it, but not too much. But what are do you have division winner predictions for next year? Or
Well,
how about this? I'll phrase it a different way. Who do you feel is set up well for last year? Maybe even a team that didn't make the playoffs that you can see making a run or uh,
you know, what's unfortunate is that we haven't reached the point yet where the parity is truly there. I think we saw it a little bit this year, but there's no reason to pick against Berto or yourself in your division. Um, I think the Maris division is the most wide open. But if I'm going to call out one team, I want to mention Huge Asshole because I want to see what he does next year. I'm looking at his roster right now, and he's got Mike Evans and Jordan Matthews as his wide receivers. That's a pretty studly combination. Um, he has Carlos Hyde,
and Josh
Lamar
Gordon.
Miller. He's got Josh Gordon. He has Terrence West, Carlos Hyde, Lamar Miller. He needs a quarterback because he's got Blake Bortles. Um, but I don't know. I think he has the pieces there, and he's going to get a very high draft pick. So I don't think he's ready to contend next year, but I'm just going to see what type of jump he takes. I think he could be next year's Mr. Minor, where maybe he's the seventh best team, somebody who's 500 and is maybe the best non-playoff team. I think he might be ready to take that next step.
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of young talent. I agree with you completely. I think he's set up. He's mentioned it a few times that he's on a 2016 plan. I don't think he's given up on 2015, but I think he needs everything to hit and all those guys to really step up and do what he would hope they would do. I think he is aiming more for 2016, and that's probably a good plan. Um,
And then how about the Nates? How about the Nates?
well, before we jump off, Hugh
Yeah.
Jassel, since you brought him up, we actually consummated a trade today that I was
Oh,
going
wow.
to send you an email about, so I might as well just announce it on the podcast.
Okay.
Uh, the Maulers are sending Dan Herron to Hugh Jassel for DeAndre Hopkins.
All right.
So
Nice.
we got some off season activity.
Nice. It's a solid trade. I like it. I like it for both teams. A team with running back depth, giving up a running back. Herron could be a very good back, and Hopkins is a nice for you. So I think it's a good deal. Like to see it. Hopefully there's some more activity. I'll give you one other team that I like is the Nates. Now here's why. We talked about Jeremy Hill. If Adrian Peterson comes back, that's a really good duo. He's got Cam Newton. At wide receiver, he has Sammy Watkins. Does Sammy Watkins take the next step? Those are some exciting young players. Even Ladarius Green at tight end. They put themselves in a position where maybe some of these guys take a step forward. Again, they're not going to win a title next year, but they have a very high draft pick. They might have the top pick. In fact, they do. So, are they going to add Marcus Mariota? I don't know. But, a couple of these doormats are kind of exciting teams going forward.
No, absolutely. I don't think they'll add Mariota with that number one pick. If I know Jonathan and his co-owner Kramer, there will be a back. I'm sure the best back will be off the board with that pick. But maybe I'm wrong, because they do have Newton, so I don't know if they need Mariota at that pick.
Who's the there's a couple studs. Who besides Gurley? Who was the other back that was considered a stud?
Well, Melvin Gordon is the other guy,
Yes.
the big name.
So imagine adding him. to Peterson. I mean, and again, I'm counting on Peterson. Even if Peterson retires, you have, you know, the number one pick combined with Jeremy Hill. Pretty good, you know. It's not that easy. And plus, they have Trey Mason, who I don't know how you feel about him, but they picked him up, in the Foster deal. So he's not a bad flex option as well. So
No, I love Trey Mason as a flex for sure.
yeah. Well, how about you? I mean, do you think? I mean, it's kind of hard to break the status quo. Who do you think are the division favorites right now?
No, that's why I wanted to ask you first. I didn't want to give but I agree. I mean, on paper, I still love my team. Like, I looked at my roster today and I was just like, I actually don't know who I would even want to drop to pick up a player in the draft. Well, then again, I've traded away two of my draft picks, so I really only have one pick. But I love my where I'm sitting right now. I think on paper it looks really good, but again, it looked great on paper this year. So who knows how that'll go? I think Berto is still, again, got to be considered either a favorite to at least make the finals. Um, I think your team is good. I think you need a piece here, a piece there, but as we know, you can get that either in the draft or on waivers. So I think you're good. Um, the team I'm interested in seeing is the Llamas. I think my division's going to start really picking it up, and it's going to make it a lot tougher for me because I think they have a lot of young talent on their team as well. Um, and the Jugs were pretty good this year as well. So I think my division's shaping up to be a tough one going forward and can help maybe take me off my throne.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, we talked a lot about the Nates. We've hit on Satan, the Jugs. We haven't talked much about the Maris division. Um, I'll be curious to see what KR does. I thought he came in, had a really good draft. He was 3-3, and then he went 2-9 the rest of the way. But he still has good pieces. He's gonna have to figure out, who's his guy, who's his quarterback going forward. I don't know. Is it Philip Rivers by default, or can Jay Cutler still be salvaged? Is Marcus Colston done? He has some questions to answer, but I still think he has some good pieces if he can make a couple moves. It wouldn't surprise me if KR is in contention. Again, maybe not next year, but he's one of those 2016 teams.
Yeah. I do think Stiff Arm has some work to do as well. I mean, he's got Peyton and DeMarco, but I don't see the depth there. So I think he's going to need to do some good work in the draft and through waivers next year to stay battling for the top of that division. Unless it's a very weak division and you guys all stink.
Well, maybe we're just all mediocre. It might be one of those, there's no doormats. I mean, because Pat, acquiring a couple of players from you, Marshawn Lynch and Braden Cooks, he needs to find a quarterback, but Pat has a high draft pick, and there are some good quarterbacks coming out this year. So, Pat can turn it around very quickly. Matt has been solid every year. We mentioned 3 straight playoff berths. He finds a way. And we could go back to when Berto was on the podcast. I think we talked about briefly whether Matt should consider trading Peyton Manning. It'll be interesting to see. He has Tony Romo, Matt. So maybe you trade Tony Romo. But, Matt has 2 quarterbacks. Be interesting to see if he can turn one of those into a different asset.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great suggestion and definitely something. I mean, don't give them away. You better get good value for them, but he should at least be considering offers.
Absolutely. It's going to be a good offseason. So, good transition. Before we leave here for the season, let's talk about the offseason. We have a couple of things we want to address. First and foremost, we want to have a league summit. Before the draft, before anything, And Dave, I think you had a pretty good idea for a possible date that we could hold the summit.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking. I mean, I don't think we need it anywhere near the draft, which will be in August most likely. And I think once the summer comes, it's almost impossible to get everyone together, this kind of a big group. So I threw out May 2nd, which is the Saturday of the real NFL draft. This way, the top guys will go on Thursday night and second round on Friday. So we'll kind of have those players we can talk about and we can drink while the later rounds are going on and go over all the issues and rule changes and all that kind of stuff on that Saturday.
Definitely. And we did the first summit a couple years ago at the Tilted Kilt, which is a great bar. So that could be a possibility. Um, but I think May 2nd is a great date. And, when we send this out to everyone, we'll mention it. And, let's see how many people we can get this far in advance. I'm sure somebody has something that they can't make it. I don't think it's realistic to get all 12 people. Not everyone even lives in the area. But if we can get 9 of the 12 teams, I think that would be a really nice turnout.
Yeah, I think we need at least 9. I think that would be good.
And obviously at the summit, we'll discuss possible rule changes. We'll obviously just kind of discuss any trades. It's kind of like the winter meetings for baseball. It gives people a chance to maybe negotiate trades face to face. Everyone should, bring their roster on paper and all their draft picks that they're thinking about taking and maybe put it on the table there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then we have our real draft, which, obviously has to occur as close to the regular season start date as possible. The regular season normally starts right after Labor Day. Late August makes sense for our draft. Obviously, our draft is only going to be rookies and any NFL player that's not kept by one of us. So that would be not that many. So it's pretty much an amateur draft when all is said and done, because everyone can keep 20 players plus anybody that is on IR. So it's a short draft, but we have to hold it. Are we thinking email? Are we thinking we want to get everyone together and maybe conference in those that can't make it? What are your initial thoughts on that?
My initial thoughts is everyone that's local that can make it to a spot, once we pick the date that works, as many people should be together, and then we open up a Google Hangout like this and have the other people that can't make it join in that way.
Now, the only concern I have is the same one that you just had about the summit, is the summer. It's going to be August, and people may not be around, to make it. So we'll see what we can do, I suppose, but I wonder if we're going to end up falling back onto an email draft, especially because
the backup plan. I mean, that can definitely work very easily. I mean, we've done it in some fantasy baseball leagues that we're in. I just think the draft could be a lot of fun if we get everyone together. I know Schraub was into it. I know Cody's into it. And if people can't do both for some reason, which I don't know why you're doing one in May, one in August, I'd rather actually get everyone together for the draft than get everyone together for the summit. But I want to do both, to be honest with
No, I agree. I mean, we'll see. We've thrown both out there. I think this league has taken off this year as a dynasty league with 12 teams, with a webcast that everyone gets. I think, we're taking this league to the next level. So if we can meet in person and make this something that really has legs, I think that would be great. If we can do 2 events every year, which are fun, I think, it would go a long way towards, continuity in the league. So let's throw it out there. May 2nd for the summit and a Saturday in August. something in the 15th, 20th, 25th, before Labor Day.
Yep. I think that should be the way to go.
All right. Well, this will be our last webcast probably until, I guess we'll do a season preview right before Labor Day. Any final thoughts on the season that just passed, the draft, anything?
No, I think it was a great season. I'm really loving the webcast. I hope everyone's enjoying it. And I mean, this is my main league, my favorite league, so I want it to be as good as possible. So.
I'm with you on that. And we should also just give them their due. It wasn't us, but the Syracuse division did win the All-Star game for bragging rights. I think the All-Star game was pretty fun this year. Be curious to see if there's any ideas of how to improve it going forward. I think we want to make it as cool as possible to kind of keep the season going. And I would even be open to, is there any way to incorporate the real NFL playoffs into some kind of contest between our leagues? So I'll throw that out there as my last word. Maybe we can talk during the summit because obviously the more football we all get, the better. So.
Yeah. On your point on the All-Star game, the only thing I could suggest, or I don't know how exactly we would do it, but it would be good to get some like periodic updates during the day. Like I didn't know how we submit the lineups, and I recognize that a few of Syracuse division's guys went off, so I assumed they won, but I had no idea until you sent out like the email the next day.
No, I mean Berto texted me, "Where's the update?" And I'm like, first of all, I was traveling. And second of all, I have better things to do in a
Well, I'm that crazy that I would take that on myself. I was just throwing it out there. Like if we put it in a spreadsheet, and then I just go to the site and dump it in, and
you could have done it. I mean, I guess for me, the All-Star game hasn't reached a point that I care enough to update it. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't that excited about it. It's fun. But I could wait till the next morning, I guess. And the site doesn't have a way to keep track of it. So if there's scoring changes, I'm not going to be like manually updating Excel. But maybe we give someone $10 to do it. They get $10 out of the prize pool if they volunteer. But it's a good idea, and we'll see. This year I was literally in a car, so I just had no ability to update it. I updated it around 7:30 in the morning the next day, so I think as commish, I lived up to my responsibilities there. I didn't leave anyone hanging, but I agree with you. It would be cool to get a live update. Maybe next year we'll figure out a way to pitch it. Maybe we'll get one person for each division to keep track of the scores. Maybe someone scores a different division from their own to make it viable.
Yeah, and I do want to thank you. You did a good job as commish this year. Thank you for first of all taking it over. I couldn't do another year of commish, and your innovation of doing the podcast and then we turned it into a webcast was awesome. So.
No, I appreciate it. As per the Constitution, I have one more year. They're only 2-year terms, so I guess at the summit we should begin to take anybody else who is interested in doing it. I think we'll continue to do the webcast. It would be nice if we have a different commission and if we can just be the media. But certainly I appreciate your help. You're still the foremost expert in the rules. I still go to you for the rules and trying to understand some of the things that I forget because you put together the Constitution. So you're definitely still the founding father, but I'm looking forward to the next year as commissioner, and then we'll pass it on.
All righty.
All right, good stuff, Dave. Enjoy the enjoy the rest of the NFL playoffs, and we'll see you for the summit hopefully, and we'll exchange emails about it.
Yeah, since you brought it up, who's your pick, by the way, for the playoffs?
It's got to be Seattle. I know it's very chalky, but I feel like Seattle, New England is in the cards. if any team is going to dethrone Seattle or New England, I think it's Green Bay. But I'm not a believer in Denver. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Seattle getting the home field is just. It might be too much to overcome. I do see them coming out of the NFC, and I hate to say it, but I still do say the Pats.
Yeah.
Having the home field, Brady, Gronk, their defense is better. I don't know. I'm hoping for anyone but the Pats, but I'm predicting.
If they lose, I think it will be this week, actually. I think Baltimore has a legitimate chance. I love the fact they have Steve Smith and Torrey Smith. Flacco is amazing in the playoffs. Forset's been great. I mean, Baltimore has one of those just ball to the wall teams. Like, they have no fear. I would say Denver could beat New England, but I just think Denver is a shell of what they were last year. There's something about them that they don't look the same. And Indianapolis, I have no faith in. So
yeah,
I think Baltimore, this is it. Baltimore's got to beat New England.
I do agree with you. If New England is going to lose, it's going to be this week. If they win this week, I see them coming out of the AFC. But if they're going to lose, it is going to be against Baltimore this week,
but
which I hope happens, to be honest with you.
Oh, I hope so too. And I definitely like Baltimore to cover. I think they're getting 7 points. But
yes, I took Baltimore with those points.
What's that?
I took Baltimore also with those points.
Yeah, definitely. And if Seattle ends up playing New England, I love Seattle. I think they match up so well. They're the one team that can contain Gronkowski. Brady cannot throw deep, so Seattle can adjust their defense. And, Russell Wilson, everyone knows how good he is, but I don't think they realize how good he is. I mean, this guy, in the last 2 minutes of a game, is terrifying. He just gets out of everything. I think Seattle has enough to repeat this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. That defense is just clicking on all cylinders again. Now that they got Chancellor and Wagner back, I mean, they're just tough. And at home, forget about it.
All right, man. Good stuff. And I will talk to you soon.
All right, take it easy. Bye.
Enjoy, everyone. Bye-bye.